Welcome, everybody. Bobby Moore here for the Power Connection Chat. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm here with Catherine Bosley. Say hello, Catherine, to the world.
Hey, world. Good to be here, Bobby. Good to talk to you.
Pleasure to have you here. So, Catherine is a fantastic personality, an award-winning broadcast journalist, and she has an incredibly powerful story around dealing with and navigating digital media. And particularly, we're going to get into the idea of cyberbullying and how to navigate that. She's also a speaker. She's done a TEDx talk. She's got some really great insights for us today. But before we do that, again, welcome to Power Connection Chat. If you're just joining us for the first time, we broadcast on Monday, Wednesday, Fridays in the morning, 8:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We take on topics around leadership, the workplace, personal branding, employee engagement, public speaking, entrepreneurship, anything that either I can share my expertise on, or if I can bring guests on like Catherine, they can share their expertise too that complements what I'm talking about. So that's what we're doing. Now, if you are joining us, how we want you to engage. So a big part of this, if you look at the actual post, you'll see all the links and how the rules of engagement, as I call them, which is, first off, comment below. Let us know where you're from. Are you from North America, South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia, or ask questions. What are some of your questions for the topic at hand that we're going to talk about in terms of navigating the digital landscape, dealing with cyberbullying and things like that? Ask your questions. If you like what you're hearing, you can like, heart, love, light bulb face, smiley face on your app. You can also tag people to join the conversation, or even better, share us on your own pages, tag people and say, hey, this is a great conversation that we're having. So that's kind of, I want to make sure you guys are enjoying with us and spending some time with us. So thanks so much for joining. So let's get right into it, Catherine. I think that what I'd like to do is kind of get into your story and telling a bit about who you are and a bit about your stories. This might be go a little bit longer, but I want to hear briefly tell your story to everybody and who you are and what you're all about, and then we'll get into some of the more deeper dive questions.
I've been a broadcast journalist for, I hate to say it, but 30 years now. Years that have flown by, but there was a time in the middle of my career when we were just starting to go digital, when the internet was really starting to come of its own being, and I had just suffered two life-threatening lung illness, a lung illness and a heart disease when I was in my 30s. Kind of came out of nowhere.
Wow.
So with the lung disease, I really didn't think I was going to make it. My doctors didn't either. So lo and behold, this experimental drug therapy that I'm on, my only hope, it's clearing my lungs. So I'm going to live. So my husband and I, we go to Key West to celebrate our 1-year anniversary and the fact that I'm still alive. And we're walking down the main street, Duval Street. And if any of you are familiar with how crazy Key West, Florida can be during spring break, and this one evening, I'm looking around and I'm thinking, my gosh, this place is so alive. And I turn to my husband and I say, and so am I. I've got my second chance at life. I'm going to go live it to the fullest and go do things I would have never done before. So we walk into a bar that night, and it turns into a crazy night. And I cut loose in a way I would have never cut loose before, in the way so many young people do today. I felt awful about it. I knew I stepped out of character. I was always the goody two-shoes. I stepped out of character, and I got silly. And so we made a pact, and we'd leave it in Key West, pretend it, never happened, learn from it, and never do anything like that again. Well, about 9 months later, we're getting ready for Christmas morning. We're expecting a house full of guests, and I'm running around the house, straightening things up, and I look out, and I see there's a message on our answering machine. So I'm thinking, hey, it's someone calling to wish us a Merry Christmas, or, a guest wondering what to bring. And I play the message, and it's an anonymous call. And some woman asks puts out just a terrible message, basically saying, Catherine, this video of you is out everywhere. It's being played at this bar and that bar and this bar and the competing television station. I was a TV news anchor in Little Youngstown, Ohio. And so your days are over. You prissy little B word. Have a very Merry Christmas. So my life changed. I knew exactly what she was talking about, that night in Key West that I thought we could leave behind. So that choice I made that night in Key West ended up costing me my dream job. I got fired, costing me friends, costing me any sense of self-respect. The video and the pictures are going from website to website today, what we call viral. And people were commenting. This is where the cyberbullying comes in before we even had the term. By the hundreds, people were commenting online. And so many of them saying, strangers saying, you're stupid, you're ugly, you have no reason to live. And I started to believe them. So we had no place to hide. Even at our house, people would drive by honking their horns, yelling terrible things out their car windows. And I'm getting invites now from media across the country, my own people wanting to interview me, asking me, what were you thinking that night? So, and that even created more cyberbullying. I mean, people just came after us terrible. And, you know, like so many who endure that today, I wanted to die. And I had a plan on how to make that happen. And I'm a woman in my 30s. And you would think that you think that you're stronger than that. But cyberbullying, Bobby, it's a brainwashing that I don't think even the experts quite understand. And when you start to see things online, and it has a different impact. Yeah, so that's my experience with cyberbullying.
Because you can't. It's not really two-way, and it makes it difficult, right? It's not a two-way conversation. It's basically people beating on you, and you can't really respond back.
Yes, you can't, and I strongly suggest, to the most part, do not respond back, because you never know what could come out, and now you're kind of lowering yourself down to their level and validating what they're saying just by responding oftentimes. So I was very fortunate. Friends, faith, and family to the rescue, rising me up, not just to help me survive, but to help me find a strength to fight back. So 3 federal lawsuits later, I got control of my life back again. I got copyright ownership to all of those images from Key West, giving me legal means then to stop the dissemination and get as much of it off the internet as I could. But we all know once it's out there in the cyber world, no matter how many times you hit delete, it's out there forever and for all to see, which has become the topic now of my keynote that I'm taking everywhere. I was able to, as soon as I got the copyrights and the other following lawsuits, a television station in Cleveland, Ohio, recognized what they called my resolve and gave me a chance to reclaim my career, and I got back at work. But in the middle of my situation, when I was at my darkest time, when I truly thought, kept looking at this drawer full of pain meds left over from previous surgeries, thinking that was my way out, I remember promising God that if I could survive, I would somehow make it count. So as I did my lawsuits and I'm back at work, back in the anchored seat, I have this thing gnawing at me. I said I would make it count somehow. And I'm reading these stories about these young people taking their own lives because of cyberbullying, and it's becoming such an epidemic. And it just hit me that now is the time to get out there and share my story and go through some ways to protect yourself against cyber catastrophe, as well as explore ways to survive it and to acknowledge the pain and the torment and to rise above. So that's the twofold purpose of my presentations.
Wow. So first off, thanks for sharing that really powerful story. My heart goes out to you in terms of what you went through. I'd like to actually talk about that a bit more. You mentioned faith, family, and friends, right?
Absolutely.
I think that's great. Talk a bit about that. Like, was there a moment where, because you mentioned the darkest part, but then was there any sort of particular shift, like either someone said something to you, or you heard something, or you felt something? Like, how did you start to turn things around? What about that moment?
I was driving in my car. It was winter here in northeastern Ohio, so it was really bad weather, and my car started spinning out of control like crazy. And I saw myself going over the highway into the median and thinking that this was it. And suddenly the car just stopped. It didn't just slow down, it just stopped. And I kind of felt like, and I'm facing other oncoming traffic, basically on the other side of the highway. And I felt like God kind of put his finger down on the car and said, see, you don't want to die. You need to reclaim your life, and you need to get back to being you. So I think that was kind of an epiphany for me, because when that car was spinning, I was pretty sure I was going to die, and I was pretty sure I didn't want to die.
Wow. Okay. Okay, that's a good one. And then that again, yeah, and that's a really powerful moment that jars you, as you said, is an epiphany moment. And what about any certain people in terms of what they said or what they did?
Oh, so again, my faith, and we've always been faithful. And our pastor came and he visited us, and he spent some time with us. And I remember asking him, "Do you believe that you go to hell if you take your own life?" And he didn't believe that, and that kind of helped me. But I could tell in his eyes that he was trying to figure out how to maneuver this conversation, and try to get to me without telling me don't kill yourself, but telling me what all the reasons there are to live. And that helped me a great deal, actually. And I've always had my parents and my brother, and we don't have a big family, but we got a close family.
Yeah.
A few friends that really stuck by me, and my husband. And my husband, I mean, this was just as traumatic for him too. So he needed as much help pretty much as I did, because he didn't know what to do for me. And there were times where, I mean, I thought that there was going to be a mental breakdown. He thought there was, and we couldn't really go. We were scared to go to the hospital, because I was at that point so infamous that we were figured that if I went to the hospital, that information would get out there too. So it was a struggle, but it truly is, and I think God comes through to you through your people too. So when I talk about surviving something like this, I come up with what's called my PACT formula. And P, it's an acronym. P stands for your people. This is the time you need to engage your army. And sometimes that army might be one person, but it is a life-saving person, and you need to share the pain that you're going through. Embarrassment, shame, hurt. You need to share that with at least one person. And the worst thing that these young kids do is they go and they hide in their bedrooms with their cell phones, just watching the cruelty come at them, and they're so embarrassed they don't share it with anybody, and it just builds up so much inside of them. So P. A is for abandon. Get off of that social media platform, or get away from that group of people that's causing you pain. The more you look at it, the more you're with them, the more effective that cruelty is going to be on you, the more it's going to affect you unnecessarily. C is for connect with professionals who know about this, people like me, and there are a lot of anti-bullying websites out there. There are counselors, there are police, law enforcement, sometimes people have to turn to, and lawyers. And T is for understanding that this too shall pass. Just like anything else that we deal with in life, hardships in life, you get through them. You think they're going to end your life, but you get through them. So that's my PACT formula for surviving something like this, or any kind of humiliation or hardship.
I like that. And, we're talking this morning with Catherine Bosley, who is a advocate to fight cyberbullying, sharing her own powerful story about how she had to deal with social media and digital media and the bullying people that were harassing her through a really difficult time, and how she got through it. If you watch the replay, you'll go back and she told a really powerful story, which is pretty deep and profound and wow. So I encourage you to watch this again from the beginning. There's a lot of people who are joining in, Sergio from Mozambique, Claudine from Canada, there's Sheldon from South Africa, there's Surya from India. Claudine said, "Oh no, wow." She said, "Wow, that's so powerful." Christiana's here. So a lot of people are joining in. If you are joining in, and they're all sharing a lot of love. There's a lot of hearts and likes.
I appreciate that.
Which is really nice. Like, they're really into your story. I think it's really powerful. Some great learnings here. So that's good. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. If you have more questions, ask her questions on how to deal with what she went through, how to deal with cyberbullying, how to navigate this crazy digital world. She already gave you the PAC formula for doing that. We're going to dive in a little bit more. I want to talk a little more. I want to touch on another thing that you said, which was your husband also had trouble going through this. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, when you're going through something this powerful, he's associated with this, and he's also related and going through this. And I think that's really important for us to understand that, one is that we're not alone, but number two, other people also are. When you cyberbully somebody, you're actually affecting a lot of people in their close-knit community. Can you talk to me about how your husband kind of dealt with this and how he got through with support?
He was very quiet.
Okay.
He became very quiet. And, you know, he was just always there. And it was just kind of a matter of us sometimes just sitting on the couch and just holding hands.
Wow.
It felt like it was us against the world, you know, and there were tears from him as well. You know, not only does he feel like he's coming under attack as well, he feels like he was partly to blame.
Right.
And he can't, there's nothing he could do to protect me. You know, we all like to protect our loved ones. And as much as it's tough when you're going through tough stuff, it's almost tougher when you're watching a loved one go through tough stuff and you can't do anything to make it better for him. For them. So I think that was one of the biggest challenges for him, is that he could sit there and hold my hand, and that's about all he could do. There's nothing. And, you know, of course he wanted to, when he saw comments coming at me, especially from other men, he wanted to respond, and he had a lot of things he wanted to say. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we dealt with hundreds of comments, probably thousands of comments. Yeah. So I think he maybe responded twice, but it's really, you really have to have some discipline to not fall into the cyberbullying rhetoric that goes on there, because now, you know, once you engage in it, then you fire it up, number one. Number two, you also become a bully in a way.
Mm-hmm. And make a really good point. So I think we were talking about the feeling of helplessness. I know that for me, one time when my son was dealing with a really difficult, traumatic kind of, he felt a lot of shame, and there was nothing I could do except just be there for him. Yeah, be there. And I felt horrible. Like I don't even know what I could say. Like, it's okay. I'm sorry you're going through this. Like, and I just felt my heart was crushed because I could feel his pain. I didn't know what I could do to help him besides just be there. It's very a soul sucking thing to do it. But again, with talking and holding each other and hugging over time, you get through it. But I'm constantly wondering, like, you know, what could I have done to avoid this? What could I have done to stop that, prevent it?
And that's a big part of my presentation too. I go through what I call my top 5 digital dangers, and I try to make it clear to people that we are living in a day, this is in my TEDx too, where there is so little room for that what was I thinking moment before it could become attached to you forever and for all to see, which means you've got to be so mindful of everything you're doing out there as soon as you leave your home. You know, we are on camera as soon as we leave our homes. It's estimated between the time you walk out, you go get your coffee, you go to work, you go do things after work, pick up the kids, pick up the dry cleaning, that you're on camera 75 to 100 times, which is pretty much all the time, right? And there's no, just with the surveillance cameras, there is no regulations, at least here in the United States, about what anyone who's in control of those security cameras can do with that video. So if, you know, your skirt's flying up or you fall down and you provide what I call social media gold moment for someone who's running a security camera, you just don't know what's going to happen. So you got to be so mindful of everything that you're doing in public. Also, we're all walking around with our cell phones, and you never know who's pointing that cell phone at you, and when you are giving them a social media or gold moment. You know, there was a situation, I was going to work, I was working on our morning show, and so that means I have to be on the road at 2:30 in the morning. I always go through my local coffee shop, get my cup of coffee. As I'm pulling through this one morning, I order and I pull around the side of the building to get to the drive-through window, and there's no one at the window, but in the drive-through lane there was a police car just sitting there. It wasn't going anywhere. I don't have time for this, so I go around him. I don't even look at him, and I say, "What's going on back here?" And the woman working there says, "I don't know. You know, he placed his order 10 minutes ago, and I can't leave the building and I can't see around. So what do you see?" And I look in my rear view mirror. I see a police officer with his head slumped back and his mouth wide open. I jump out of my car. I run back there. His car is running and the window's down. And all of a sudden I hear him snore. So I wake him up, and he's embarrassed and of course kind of surprised. And he thanks me, and I go on my way. But then I think, you know, if I would have taken video of that moment, taken a picture of that police officer and posted it, he would have gotten fired. He would have been under, he would have probably gone viral. And then how does he get another job? And then what is his home life like? So it's things like this that I try to raise people's awareness to. You think you would have the social media gold moment by putting this police officer sleeping at a donut shop up on your social media, and people are going to come clamoring to it. But also, what are you doing to that person? And you never know the whole story. And when I went through the donut shop again the next morning, I asked the woman working there what was going on. And she says he had a cold and he took the wrong cold medicine. So it made him very tired. Now that must have been really tired. I hope that I talk about using a little voice inside your head when you know you shouldn't do something, don't do it. So hopefully he did not continue his work shift that day and went home. But you just never know how you could affect someone. And that means you also never know how people can impact you by taking moments that you have in public out of context or just exploiting a weak moment. When I talk at colleges, I say, what does it look like when you're at Starbucks and you have a meltdown on your laptop because that project that you've been working on all semester just goes poof because your computer, what does that look like? And I usually have a student come up on stage with me and explains what it looks like. And if it's taken out of context, it could look pretty bad. Or again, having that one drink too many, or having a meltdown on your kids in the grocery store. It's really important now for us to be so mindful of everything we do before we could become that person like me, where your life is now turned upside down because the moment is taken out of context. So I go through the top 5 digital dangers, and it kind of all comes down to that, really.
And that reminds me of something I actually just posted this morning on Twitter, which was, learn a person's story before you judge a person's actions. And we don't take the time to realize that no matter how someone's acting, first off, treat it as a one-off. Now, if they've been acting the same way for 1,000 times, it might be different. But initially, learn their story, understand who they are, where they're coming from. You have no idea what people are going through. So you give some fantastic examples of the person yelling at Starbucks at their laptop, or the person who. Yeah, these are great examples of things. The cop sleeping, these are examples. We don't know what's going on. Maybe he had a rough night. Maybe his wife just delivered a baby at 2 o'clock in the morning. You have no idea.
Right. Or someone in their family is sick or something. You just don't know. And it's so important for us to be mindful about being kind online. And I also go back to, consent. It says that if you're going to take pictures of someone, get their consent. If you're going to post something about someone, get their consent. If it's something that, that might be a little iffy. You just don't know how it's going to affect somebody. And when it's out there and you see it online, like I say, it is so impactful and it can be so deeply painful.
Yeah. We're talking with Catherine Bosley about cyberbullying and digital, navigating the digital landscape because it's very challenging now. And she has a really powerful story. If you look at the replay, which is great, people are asking questions. Christiane just said amen, which is great. If you have questions, ask questions for her, and she and I can both answer in terms of dealing with cyberbullying, dealing with the digital landscape, and things like that. There is one question here: what platform did she have the cyberbully? Was it just one, or were there many?
No, this was before social media.
Right.
So this was, we had the internet, and there were a couple of. This is what happened. There were a couple. I did skip this. There were a couple of websites out there with video cameras, and they were documenting that whole night in Key West, and then they put it together and they sold it online. So that's how the video and the pictures of me from that night got out there. So yeah, it wasn't even social media. So then those pictures and video that went from website to website, as again I said, went viral, and the comments then just poured in on all these different websites.
Mm-hmm.
So that was before social media. I can't imagine if social media were around when I went through this, I would not be here. I would not.
Yeah, and I remember you mentioned in, I think, one of your articles or posts about Monica Lewinsky, and I remember I saw her going through. She did an interview where she said that if social media had been the way it was now, with just so many different platforms across a broad range of people, and it would have been 100 times harder to go through what she went through. And it's unbelievable how hard that is. Now, let's talk a bit about the work you're doing with trying to educate teens on cyberbullying. Can you tell me a bit about what are you trying to do to help them?
Well, I'm trying to make them understand that they're not alone. Number one, should they fall victim to cyberbullying, that it is survivable with my PACT strategy. That if I went through it, television news anchor, anybody could go through it, and if I can survive it, you can too, because mine was global. The thing is, though, you don't have to go viral globally for it to be turn your world upside down. All you have to do is go viral in your own world, amongst your classmates, amongst your coworkers, for it to seem like the whole world is coming down on you. And it really is. It does play a mind game on you, for sure. So I make the kids understand that they're not alone, and that, and you need to understand to not do this to each other because of how painful it is. But you also need to understand that last part of my PACT theory strategy, I think, is the most impactful. It says, this too shall pass. Right. Especially when you're young people. When you're young, everything just seems like, oh my God, how am I going to survive it? And then as we get through life, we understand that we can get over these hurdles, which helps. But truly, this presentation, taking it from, I usually started junior high school. That's about as young as I go, because there's some adult message with this. Sure. But I also go into corporations. There's a lot of bullying that goes on in corporations as well. And for corporations, you're only as good as your weakest link. So you're only as good as the weakest link of the employee who is out there being reckless. So there's no more separation of work and personal life anymore. If you're out there and you're being reckless, you're also an employee of this and this, and now that employer is associated to your activities. So it's so important to keep disciplined that way and understand that everything you're putting out there, it's not just about you anymore. It's about your employer. It's about your family. There was a story not long ago about a well-known TV news anchor who decided to tweet a picture of his privates. And of course that went viral, and he put his dream job in jeopardy that way. But the worst part is that he had a teenage son, and that teenage son was found dead in his bedroom a couple days later. And it was a drug overdose, but there was, of course, speculation that the embarrassment was just too much. Maybe it was just that thing that put him over the edge. So again, that's just speculation, but it makes you think that what you're doing out there also could affect other people. So to always pause before you post and think about, what is it saying about you? What is it saying about your parents, about your kids, about your family? And these are some of the messages that I do take to the kids to help them understand how crucial it is to think about what you're putting out there, and also how crucial it is to understand that it's survivable.
Now, I'm a parent of a 9-year-old and an 11-year-old. And so, so I'm always nervous about this kind of stuff. What can I do to help empower them when I'm not around? What can I do to help them? I'm curious about that.
I think it just comes down to being the basic parenting that you do with everything else. It's to make them understand that they're strong, and make them understand how important it is to make good decisions, and make sure that they understand to treat others as you would want to be treated. It comes down to that. If you do all that in your real life and you translate it onto your digital life, you're going to rise above. So I think that that's what it comes down to. Everything that you're doing in your real life needs to be the same. You treat it all the same in your digital life.
Now, you did a TED Talk to share your story. Tell us a bit more about how that went.
Oh, that was a fantastic experience, and it was kind of a healing experience too. It's been 16 years since my situation. It was back in 2003, 2004. Right. So many of those years, I tried to pretend it didn't exist and push it aside. And so when I decided that I was going to nail it head on and tell the story the way I wanted to, it was quite healing, and it was liberating as well. So I really appreciate that experience, and the TED Talk is taking off pretty well too. So
that's wonderful. Now, going back to the ACT, just quickly remind people what the letters stand for, and then I want to dive into the T.
Sure. Yeah, so P stands for people. So when you're experiencing any kind of cyber catastrophe or any kind of humiliation, you need to recruit and engage the people who are closest to you, those you love and trust the most. explain to them how you're feeling, what you're going through. You've got to reach out to your people because they are there for you and they can put things in a different perspective. Going and hiding in your room and just taking in the torment without engaging your people who are on your side is one of the worst things you could do. A stands for abandon, which means get off of that social media platform, abandon that group of friends, so-called friends that are causing you the pain. The sooner you get away from that and you go do other things, go for a run, go hang out with the dog, go hang out with your kids or your parents, the less painful it's going to be. It just seems so much bigger when you sit there and you stare at them. So abandon. C stands for connect with professionals who know about this, and more there's a movement by professionals to bring an end to the torment of cyber cruelty. So online, there's a bunch of anti-bullying websites. There's people like me who've been through it. There's police. Sometimes you have to recruit law enforcement to help you with this. And there are lawyers and, of course, therapists. And then C is for this too shall pass. Like any challenges we deal with in life that we think are going to be the end of us, what happens, not only do we survive it, it passes. We're stronger, wiser, and more equipped to go out and help other people in our lives that find themselves dealing with similar hardships.
Yeah, so here, getting people to help you is good. I tagged my friend Blake Fleischacker. He talks about cyberbullying as well. He goes into schools and he does these programs for them. He also launched a program for helping young people from 9 to 13 years of age understand how social media works and how you have to be It's about taking responsibility and then saying, will this affect someone in a negative way before you post anything or engage in anything? I think that's really important because even Sheldine on our post says, the thing I find shocking is youngsters don't understand the damage they can do for themselves and others. I think it's a big problem, and I think young people need to figure that out. Older people do as well. They don't get it either, but I think
all ages. And it forever and for all to see. I mean, that kind of nails what happens in our cyber world. You can hit delete all you want, but once it's out there, it is out there forever and for all to see, and you've got to come to terms with that. So a couple of actionable steps you can take then to lessen the impact. Number one, of course, delete. When you realize that there's a post or something out there that that shouldn't be out there, that's a poor reflection on you, delete it. And more importantly, step number two is for every picture or post that you're deleting, fill it in with good things that you want people to know about you, you want people to say about you. That is where you can really beef up your Google search and other things. And that's there's a company called reputationdefender.com, and I have no association with them, but I know that they do a really good job on helping people clean up their social media and their digital image, and that's really important. There are people who are really good at that. So I also talk a lot about selfies with kids, especially. They love their selfies, and I get it. I have fun with selfies too, and pretty much all of us do who spend any time with our cell phones. But here's what you need to do with the selfies. Pictures or posts you control. This is one of my digital dangers. There's so little we control in our world. So pictures and posts you control. It's really important to take inventory of what's going on in these pictures. What's behind you? So are there a bunch of empty beer bottles back there? Is there a political sign or a sleazy bar sign that you don't want to be associated with you? That's number one. Number two, what are other people doing in your picture that could be a poor reflection on you? Because there is that guilty by association thing. It's there for a reason. And what are you doing in that picture that could someday be misinterpreted down the road? So take inventory on those three levels when you're in control of these pictures. I think that's really important because we just are snapping and throwing things out there. And when you look a little bit closer at these pictures, sometimes there's something in there that now is attached to you forever and for all to see. So
yeah, and it's funny because most people want to do a selfie, they focus on, wait, okay, I don't look good, I'm smiling. Let's do it again. They don't even think about what's behind them, right?
Right. And what other people are doing back there. There's lots of hand gestures going on these days. I suppose there's always been lots of hand gestures going on. But and some of them are, there's the peace sign and there's gestures that aren't so bad, but I just don't ever want it to be mistaken. So whenever I'm taking a selfie, if I see hand gestures going down, my cell phone comes down right away. So you got to decide what's acceptable to you and what's not, as far as what's in your pictures that you're putting out there that you control.
I want to talk about the T. This too shall pass. You
Yes.
know, having been through cyberbullying myself and people cyberbullied me, it passes, but I find it never goes away. Like it 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 diminishes in terms of how much you think about it, how much it bothers you. But I have some things from 10 years ago. I have some things from 3 years ago. I have some things from last year that are still in my head, or they still come up when I'm in the shower or something.
Yeah.
But so what are your thoughts on that? Because I find that it never goes away, but I guess over time it diminishes, and you're more able to deal with it because you have done it. You know what I mean?
It does. I mean, it is, every time I tell my story, and I tell it hundreds of times a year, it is painful. It's still painful, but it's not. It's when you address it, when you embrace it, and when you've survived it. Now you need to use it. You need to make it count. And once you do that, then you see purpose in what happened to you. So I think that's kind of comes down to this too shall pass. This too also shall make you stronger and wiser. And now you can use it. And it's so important to not let things happen to you. This another speech I give is about making it count. But everything that happens to us, I believe, happens for a reason. And I believe you've got to make everything count. You don't want pain and suffering to go down in vain. You need to use it to help other people. And once you start to do that, then you find yourself being stronger. And then you look back at that situation. People ask me all the time, if you could go back, would you have not done what you did? And I'm at the point now where I'm saying, no, this happened to me for a reason. I have a good platform. I have a strong voice. I am very expressive, and I want to help people. So it equipped me to go out there and to make a difference. So this too shall pass, the pain of it, and now you're going to pull in the strength that you can get from it. So I believe that's with, again, any hardship or challenges that you suffer in life.
So now that this is a long time ago, and you're out there sharing your message, are you dealing with any cyberbullying currently, like presently, or how's that going?
Oh, every once in a while. I mean, I don't think I've ever completely escaped that. It still will come at you once in a while, and I have to take my own advice and get away from it and use my PAC method. And when someone says something cruel, I tell people about it. My poor husband, he hears a lot. I'm like, can you believe this person said that? And he helps put it into perspective. There you go. And I banded it. I get away from it. I connect with myself, and I understand that this thing is going to go away. This is, you've got to get control of it and engage the good things of everything in life, and put it all in perspective. A comment coming in online from a stranger who doesn't know anything about you, that's cruel, versus all the love of your family and all the fun things that are going on in your life. You've got to put things in perspective, and those good things are so much more important.
Are there certain platforms that are more prevalent for cyberbullying that you've experienced or noticed?
Stinking Twitter.
Yeah.
Sorry. Twitter. I mean, maybe because it's so immediate. Yeah. And once they pound on, they pound on really hard. And a teenager out of school this fall, she had an issue with one of the stories that I shared. And instead of just coming to me or direct messaging me, she put it out there on Twitter and just attacked me. And so this is a 16-year-old. There's other things going on in her life that made her do this. But then you see other people liking it and retweeting, and then it's like, oh boy, what's going on here? So, and I mean, it was a couple of days of watching this and then just saying, she doesn't know what she's talking about, and you've got to just have strength as far as that goes too. But yeah, Twitter.
I think Twitter's probably the one that I've experienced the most. And of course, I have a lot of followers there, so I get it all the time. I get people name calling me every day, pretty much. There's a lot of angry people on there, but that's also why I'm on a mission to create more bridging understanding, using empathy and love and kindness, and never being divisive, never bullying people, never name calling. I call it out in a respectful manner, and I've been able to turn around some people who have been divisive on there. So, but it's probably like less than 10%. But every little bit counts. I think it's really important. I think the other one to keep in mind, though, for young people is text messages, TikTok, Snapchat, because it's like Twitter, except they get a barrage of short messages from dozens of people, and that's where it really hits them hard because they get overwhelmed by the sheer volume of people talking about them and quote unquote laughing at them, and it's very difficult for young people to deal with that.
Right. And, we do have, of course, this cell phone addiction where you put down your cell phone for 10 seconds and you feel the need to pick it up again and look at it, as opposed to just trying to go and let the moment be the moment in your real life. Right. Yeah, we're all like that. And that makes it so much worse. So it is kind of a crazy thing how this digital world is kind of taking over our minds. It is it's brainwashing in so many ways.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm actually working on one of my new keynotes this year is on the future of connection now, because there's three issues I see. One is the connection that people are struggling with just in person, because of technology, because of social media, we're not that good at connecting with each other in person in a one-on-one conversation at dinner or at a networking event. Number two, online, the bullying piece is certainly one part of this disconnection that we're having. People are divisive, they're angry, they don't know how to process and navigate that. And the third thing, all the platforms, because now we have social media platforms like LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We have work platforms like Slack, Asana, Trello. We have two screens. We have an iPad. We have our cell phone. We have a second cell phone. And navigating all that stuff is extremely difficult, and we have not been able to keep up with all this technology in terms of education and support.
Right.
I think it's a big challenge.
Yeah, and there is, I think there's been some research in why we always have to be connected, and it has something to do with reward. Like if someone likes one of your posts, you get a little reward feeling. So it's almost like that high that you're getting. So it's an addiction. Yeah,
right.
Dopamine.
I like that dopamine thing.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
It's sad.
So tell us a bit more about your work. I mean, one of the things that I'd love to know about is your speaking message, right, and what you're speaking about. So you already talked about what you kind of speak about, but tell us a bit more about the work you're doing and the kind of difference that your message makes for people.
Sure. So going again from middle schools, high schools, colleges, and into the corporate world and conferences, there's a lot of female empowerment going on in the U.S. right now. Globally, there is, and it's fantastic. So there's a lot of summits, a lot of symposiums for women to speak, and I think my message resonates most deeply actually with women, because I feel like women are most vulnerable to having these falling victim. Right. So I love to get out there and make women more empowered to know how to be so proactive and how to be very mindful in what you do so that you don't fall victim, and then how to rise above and understand that we are strong and that we're better than this. So I love speaking at women's events. And it is so rewarding with the high schoolers, because after I'm done speaking, we take selfies. I mean, I practice, I teach them that happy, healthy selfie, and they're all around, and we take a bunch of selfies, and so that's a lot of fun. And they ask me before they take the selfie, even though I'm there, I'm taking with a bunch of them. They are almost all asking me, can I take a picture with you and can I post it? So that you've gotten to them that way, because those are the two big consent key points that I talk about with the kids. So I love that. It's very rewarding. And I also want everybody to understand when they talk to the kids that you don't understand the impact a mistake online can make until you understand that you have dreams and other things to go out there and get. So when I start my presentations, even with adults, what is your dream right now? And I usually have them text themselves, what is my dream? I want to be a doctor. I want to go work in the Army. I want to do, what is your dream right now? And then once they realize their dreams, they realize the risks of irresponsible social media and so forth. And, even we talk about cyberbullying a lot. And one thing that I'm heartened about in the cyberbullying environment is that once a cyberbully or a bully is found out, what goes around comes around, and they end up getting bullied as well and known as a bully. And right now, that's a pretty lethal label to have to be known as a bully. So getting that information out there is really important with the young people and adults. The information that seems to resonate with them mostly is understanding that what they're putting out there is not just about them, that it does affect their loved ones, it does affect their workplace. It is a reflection on your church group or whatever. So I love that with the adults. So my keynotes, breakout sessions, coaching, one-on-one coaching. Let's go through your social media. Let me take a look at what we have out there so I can alert you when I see something that could come back and haunt you years down the road. And how are we going to deal with that to make it as least impactful on your dream as possible? So anything from speaking to huge groups to one-on-one consulting and coaching, absolutely, I do that. I got a couple of books that I hope are going to be out this year. I wrote my memoir a while ago, but I'm kind of putting that on the shelf for a minute because I want to put mostly a how-to book, which basically breaks down my whole speech, my top 5 digital dangers and my PAC strategy. So it's keeping me busy, and it's great.
And we have a lot of people, again, this has been one of the best kind of personal shares of the Power Connection Chat. And that's what this Connection Chat's all about, people sharing their stories. And when you understand their story, then you'll understand their actions. I think it's so important to do that. Dharamapal Singh says, good work. Shelly says, good for you for surfing things. There's a question from Sajid Kumar. Should you be too worried about what others say about you on social media? What's your response?
Should you be too worried about what other people? No. Again, you got to put it in perspective, right?
Yeah.
You got to put it in perspective. That's what they say. Sometimes the bullying gets really hard and someone says really something mean to you on social media. How about you come back to them with love and say, oh, I like you so much. Or, I saw you the other day and I thought you looked so pretty, or, things like that. My husband laughs because when he hears someone saying something negative about someone else, he just says, well, that person says lots of good things about you. So, you got to come back with the positive, and you got to put it in perspective. What they're saying about you on social media, it is what happens on this phone is not life. What you're dealing with right in front of you, that's life. You can just get off of your social media and just close it all down, and now you've got life, and that's what counts. The problem is, though, what you need to be on social media in order to move on professionally in so many ways. If you don't have a social media footprint out there, then people will think something is wrong. So you've got to consider that.
I appreciate this because I'm a notorious replier. So I will almost always reply to. No, it's true. Like when I get the comments on Twitter or on LinkedIn or that are troll-like, I almost always respond. But I've kind of honed a system for doing it in a way that doesn't upset me, and I'm usually able to shut them down. But or I'll let it go after one kind of all-encompassing statement. But I think the number one thing though is that it's probably better just delete, ignore, and let it go.
Right.
And I love the response.
Because then you're giving the negativity and the bad stuff. You're giving it power by responding to it.
Yeah. Totally.
And like I said, there are going to be those times where you just need to say something.
But I love what you said. You're really good looking and so smart. You're lovely. You're just lovely. Have a lovely day.
Have a lovely day. I hope you have a great day. Yes.
That's so great.
Like that.
All right, that's great. Well, listen, if everyone who's joining us, I'm with Catherine Bosley, who's talking about digital experiences and dealing with cyberbullying and her sharing her powerful story. You have to watch this entire replay because it's amazing that she's sharing her story. If you have questions for her, you can put them in the feed and tag her, and then she can hopefully answer those questions. Let everyone know now, Catherine, where people can find you.
CatherineBosley.com. Please join me at CatherineBosley.com. There are testimonials as to the impact my presentation has. There's also samples. I've got plenty of video samples of my presentation, and I would love to come and speak to your group. I travel worldwide, so you can get me there. You can find me on all the big social media, on Facebook, on LinkedIn is my favorite. I love LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter and on Instagram. So I would love to connect.
All right. Well, listen, thank you so much for joining me, Catherine. I really appreciate your time. I love your story. Check out her website. Check out her TEDx talk. It's amazing stuff. Once again, this is the Power Connection chat. We are here every on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 8:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I have an interview coming up on Monday as well, but it's going to be a different time. It's going to be 11:45 a.m. Because they're on the West Coast. But check us out, and for everyone who's watching, have a wonderful day. Have an enjoyable weekend. And if you have any questions about cyberbullying, please reach out to Catherine. Reach out to me. We want to help people because we've been through this. We have the expertise. We want to help you. So please let us know.
For
All
sure.
right. Thanks so much. Take care.
All right. Thank you. Bye.